Hi, I'm Jason, and this is the Historical Cinematic Universe. Oppenheimer was undoubtedly the biggest movie of 2023. It was a critical and commercial success, winning 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, and was part of the cultural phenomenon known as Barbenheimer. It was also, of course, based on a true story about the life and career of physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb. Oppenheimer is notable for having nearly every character in the film based on a real person, with Alden Ehrenreich's character being the solo exception. Many of these people appear in at least one other story, and as of this video, 65 stories directly connect to Oppenheimer. Showing every story and person would make this video nearly as long as the movie itself, so here is a selection of these connections. Oppenheimer. This 1980 miniseries covers roughly the same time period as the 2023 film. Here, Oppenheimer is played by Sam Waterston, who is probably best known for playing Jack McCoy on Law & Order. The miniseries also has the most connections, with 23 people appearing in both stories. From Oppenheimer's personal life, we have Kitty Oppenheimer, his wife, Frank Oppenheimer, his brother, Jean Tatlock, his lover, and Håkon Chevalier, his very social friend. Of his colleagues and scientists who worked with him on the Manhattan Project, there's Edward Teller, Ernest Lawrence, Isidore Rabi, Enrico Fermi, Leo Szilard, and Klaus Fuchs. And for the military and government officials who worked with or against Oppenheimer in his career, there's General Leslie Groves, Secretary of War Henry Stimson, Boris Pash, Roger Robb, and Louis Strauss. Fat Man and Little Boy is a 1989 film about the Manhattan Project from when General Groves was first assigned to it in 1942 to the Trinity test in 1945. Dwight Schultz plays Oppenheimer in the movie. Kitty, Frank, and Jean also appear in the film. So are Teller, Fermi, and Szilard, as well as Groves, Stimson, and Pash. The Beginning or the End is the earliest film to depict the Manhattan Project, released in 1947, only 2 years after the end of World War II. Due to a legal requirement to obtain permission to depict living, well-known public figures in film, many refused, but others cooperated. Those who were depicted were Oppenheimer, Groves, Fermi, and Szilard. The movie also features depictions of Albert Einstein, Vannevar Bush, and President Harry Truman. Hiroshima is a Japanese-Canadian docudrama from 1995 about the months leading up to the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, from both the American and Japanese perspectives. It features Oppenheimer, Groves, Szilard, Truman, and Stimson, as well as General George Marshall and Secretary of State James Burns. Enola Gay, The Men, the Mission, and the Atomic Bomb from 1980 is about the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and the men who took part in that fateful mission. It also features Oppenheimer, Groves, Truman, Stimson, and Marshall. Genius is a biographical anthology series from National Geographic, which focuses on extraordinary people who were considered geniuses in their fields. The first season, from 2017, focused on Albert Einstein, from his early career as a patent clerk to his death in 1955. Einstein was only a minor character in Oppenheimer, so it's fitting that Oppenheimer is only a minor character in Einstein. Groves, Szilard, and fellow physicists Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg also make appearances. Einstein also appears in 2016's Marie Curie, The Courage of Knowledge, a biopic from Poland about the famed scientist Marie Curie, whose pioneering work on radioactivity was one of the foundations that ultimately led to the creation of the atomic bomb. Though, when it comes to movies featuring Einstein and Curie, I prefer the comedy classic Young Einstein. Adventures of a Mathematician is a 2020 biopic about Polish and American physicist Stanislaw Ulam, who worked on the Manhattan Project. While he doesn't appear in Oppenheimer's movie, Oppenheimer does appear in his, as well as Edward Teller and Klaus Fuchs. Copenhagen is a British TV film from 2002 about a meeting between Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg, which took place in Copenhagen in 1941. This meeting was actually mentioned by Bohr in Oppenheimer when he visits Los Alamos. Later in that scene, Bohr mentions that Heisenberg was more focused on heavy water, and we see this in 2015's The Heavy Water War, a Norwegian series about the German nuclear program and the Allied-led efforts to sabotage Germany's heavy water production. Both Bohr and Heisenberg also appear in this show. Heisenberg also appeared in The Catcher Was a Spy, a 2018 spy film about Red Sox player and spy Mo Berg, who was tasked to assassinate Heisenberg if he was close to making an atomic bomb for Germany. Richard Feynman was an American theoretical physicist who worked on the Manhattan Project. He was depicted in Oppenheimer as a supporting character played by Jack Quaid. But this wasn't the first time Feynman was depicted in film. The first was Infinity from 1996, where Feynman was played by Matthew Broderick. The movie focused more on Feynman's relationship with his first wife, Arlene, who died in 1945. The second was The Challenger Disaster, a 2013 docudrama about the investigation into the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster that took the lives of all 7 crew members, including schoolteacher Krista McAuliffe, in 1986. Here, the late William Hurt plays Feynman. In Oppenheimer, we see Oppenheimer collaborating with Enrico Fermi at the University of Chicago, where Fermi created the world's first human-made, self-sustaining nuclear reactor. In Via Panisperna Boys, a 1989 Italian TV movie, we see Fermi's time at the Sapienza University of Rome, where he led a group of young physicists known as the Via Panisperna Boys. Fermi's work in Rome ultimately led to the creation of his reactor in Chicago. Klaus Fuchs was a German-born British physicist who also worked on the Manhattan Project. He was also a communist spy who supplied information on the project to the Soviet Union. His time at Los Alamos, as well as the revelation of his subterfuge, were depicted in Oppenheimer. In addition to his appearances I've already covered in this video, he also appears in Cambridge Spies, a 2003 miniseries about 4 young men at the University of Cambridge who were recruited to spy for the Soviet Union in 1934. 1995's Truman is a biopic about President Harry Truman from his early life to his presidency. Aside from Truman, Secretary Stimson and General Marshall also appear in the film. President Truman has been portrayed several times in film and television throughout the years, and naturally all those films and shows connect to Oppenheimer. Tora 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 is a 1970 epic war film about the events leading up to the infamous Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. Both Stimson and Marshall appear in this film. Roger Robb served as special counsel at the Atomic Energy Commission hearing, which revoked Oppenheimer's security clearance, as seen in the 2023 film. In 1969, he was appointed as a judge on the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. There, he presided over the trial involving the release of the Pentagon Papers, a set of classified documents detailing the United States' involvement in Vietnam. We see a bit of this trial and a portrayal of Robb in 2017's The Post, the Steven Spielberg film about the Washington Post's attempts to publish the papers. James Burns served as Secretary of State under President Truman, and later as Governor of South Carolina from 1951 to 1955. He was present during the scene where Oppenheimer meets with Truman. We see him during his time as governor in the 1991 two-part miniseries Separate But Equal, about the landmark Supreme Court desegregation case, Brown versus Board of Education. President Lyndon Johnson appears briefly at the end of Oppenheimer. He is one of the most depicted presidents in film and television. The then Vice President Johnson appears in a few scenes of 13 Days, the 2000 drama about the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. The movie continues the same narrative thread of the existential threat of nuclear annihilation that Oppenheimer sets up, and with Kennedy being name-dropped at the end of Oppenheimer, 13 Days could be viewed as a spiritual sequel, despite being released 23 years prior. The Vice President also appears briefly in The Right Stuff, the 1983 film about the astronauts of Project Mercury. As for movies set during Johnson's presidency, there is All the Way from 2016, about Johnson's efforts to ensure the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And finally, Oppenheimer's connection to the Greater Crown, the nearly unbroken narrative arc about the English and British monarchies, which I view as the central line of the greater historical cinematic universe. If a story can connect to the Greater Crown, it can connect to every other story in the Greater HCU. So how does Oppenheimer connect to the Greater Crown? Well, through President Johnson, who appears in the third season of The Crown, where he meets with Princess Margaret, the sister of Queen Elizabeth II. And there you have it, the historical cinematic universe of Oppenheimer. As I mentioned in the beginning, I did not cover every story that directly connects to Oppenheimer. If you want me to make a video on those other stories, or if there's a movie, show, or historical figure you would like to see me cover on this channel, please let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to see more videos, please subscribe. Thank you and have a great day.